Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. It's indeed a pleasure to have Dr. Doherty here from Nigeria. You touched on the digital divide. And when I look at United States, I look at England, I look at Jamaica, there's always the consistent digital divide because digital divide is just those who have access to technology and those who do not. And that's the bottom line. Within your context, how are you moving towards your government and Nigeria on a whole, moving towards ensuring that individuals are able to access the required equipment and technology within this crisis at this point in time?
There are a number of factors that contribute to Nigeria's growing digital divide. Um, Education, access to education, lack of electrical infrastructure, poverty, and the urban drift. So these are some of the factors that contribute to digital divide in Nigeria. So if you look at the urban drift, for example, in the rural settings, the poverty level is very high. It's very, very high. And people will rather think about what to eat than think about internet data or digital devices. So this is the reality, in Nigeria. And then when you talk about electricity also, Nigeria cannot, the urban areas or the urban cities can only boast of electricity. But when you move down to the rural areas, you find that many of the rural areas don't have access to electricity supply. And we know that many of these digital tools, you need electricity to power them. So, and if you don't have electricity, how do you power these devices? It becomes a problem, So, and I also mentioned poverty. The statistics by the Nigerian Bureau of Statistics, gave the statistics that 40.1% of the population in Nigeria is classified as poor. And like I said, people will rather think about what to put in their stomach, how to survive, and rather than think about anything digital. And then access to education, especially for children in the northern part of Nigeria, just like I mentioned in the northeast. So access to education, it's a problem, even though primary education is officially free and compulsory. However, over 10 million of the country's children aged 5 to 14 are still out of school. So if we have children out of school, I mean, how will they have access to these digital devices? And again, in the northern part of Nigeria, because of the religious and cultural bias and all that, you find that 60% of the female population do not have access to internet. They don't have access to internet. And the men will rather prefer their wife not to use internet, their daughters not to use internet because of religious and cultural reasons and issues. So these are some of the factors that.
Yes. And there are factors that in the West sometimes we do not take into consideration, but there are relevant issues that need to be addressed. And sometimes we do not think about this within our context too. And you've revealed to me that we need to be conscious of this because it is everywhere,
Yes.
and it is everywhere.
So even in the southwest of Nigeria, you still have the problem of poverty. The urban and rural settings where even in the rural towns in the southern part of Nigeria, they don't have access to electricity. And then because of poverty, many children don't have access to digital devices. And that was a very big challenge for the government. How do you now reach out to children who don't have access during the pandemic. And some of the actions of the solutions to this problem was they tried to have programs on TV and radio. But however, TV, you still need electricity. Radio, you still need electricity. You're trying to solve a problem, but again, you're not really reaching out to everyone.
That is so correct, because I think in the Caribbean, it is the same thing too. You can be in a meeting rather, and you'll be cut off as a result of no electricity supply. And in the United States, when you look at the digital divide, as we move towards greater technologies, we realize that many children who are in the poverty area or region do not have access to the technology required. So it's right across the globe as it relates to having the access. So I think it's important that we address the access, because if we don't, then children will be left behind. That's the reality, and students will be left behind, and then we cannot have a society that is equipped to meet with the demands of the future. Yeah, I wanted to touch something else, because I know you're in faculty development, you have a passion for faculty development. And one of the things that I've realized is that there's a concern regarding, as these new emerging technologies come into play, that teachers are not equipped to use these technologies. Do you think we need to really think globally and within your country and the United States and Jamaica as it relates to training teachers to be able to use the technologies effectively?
Because of the peculiarity of the challenges we have in Nigeria, in Africa, many of our teachers don't have access to recent technology. And like I mentioned earlier, that because we don't have access to it, we don't have the capacity to use them. Mm-hmm. So we go for the social media platforms that are readily available, even though they are not the best, for online learning. So like the learning management system, I know that in the developed countries, this is something that almost all institutions have. But when you come to Nigeria, you still have the challenge. Many government institutions, public institutions, don't have these learning management systems. I know that technology is changing every day.
Rapidly.
So, and we are still struggling to meet up with the old one in Nigeria. So I think collaboration is key. Collaboration between institutions that will help those of us who are still very much behind when it comes to technology.
I know you have been an educator for years upon years, right? And you have learned and gained a lot of experience over the period of time. Within today's context, looking at the education landscape changing, what skills do you believe educators must have today to be relevant and to survive the profession of teaching?
I think that as educators, like there's a saying that I love so much, that the quality of an education system cannot exceed the quality of its facilitator.
Beautiful.
And do you agree with me?
Yes.
Yeah. So, and as educators, we need to continue to learn, to unlearn, and to relearn. So as educators, we need to understand the 21st century skills required by our learners. That is important. We also need to understand to understand the pedagogical and the various teaching methods that will help us in engaging our learners. So we have to be very competent pedagogically as educators. And I also feel that as an educator, one should always be up to date and interested in training, lifelong learning.
Lifelong.
And the aspect of employability skills is also important. We should, as educators, be able to build in opportunities for our students in developing key employability skills. And we know that post-COVID, there is um, there is the need for learners to develop skills such as resilience, adaptation, critical thinking. ICT skills have even become very more important now than before COVID. So as educators, we need to understand this, and we need to know how to know the to understand this, and to know how the opportunity of how to develop the skills and integrate it into our programs for our students.
Excellent. I like that, because I think we need to really revamp teacher training as it relates to our present context. And, I realize that many training sessions that I'm seeing are just a band-aid over the issue, because pedagogy and technology must be balanced. You can't be focusing on technology without the pedagogy, and I'm an advocate for that. As we come to our close, and I have two more questions to you. The first is, if you had one thing that you wanted to change as it relates to education, what change would you make today?
Access and equity. Access, access, access. Access to quality educational learning opportunities. That is one thing that I am passionate about.
Yeah, I like that, because throughout the theme and your discussion, you talked about access. And you know what? I'm going to join you on a dream that we can have access where every boy and girl in Nigeria, Jamaica, United States, England can have access to the technology to ensure that they have the equal opportunity to engage and to have life chances, just like the peers that have the technology. And I think that sums it up. I want you to share a final thought, any final thought regarding education, regarding your books that you've written, and regarding your journey over the next 5 or so years that you intend to do, what you intend to publish, anything at all you want to share.
My final thought will also be on, you know that we've talked about challenges as a result of COVID-19. However, there have been opportunities, you know,
Good.
and many institutions, many educators have become innovative and creative even in the era of COVID-19. So I would say that these innovations, this creativity, we should not allow them fall by the wayside. You know, we should be able to take on some of the lessons learned during this period, the COVID-19 period, because the lessons learned are critical to building a resilient education systems. So a lot of opportunities is not only the bad news or the sad stories. A lot of opportunities have been opened. Many institutions, some of the things they thought they could never do, or educators, some of the things they thought they could never do, they were able to achieve even during the COVID. A lot of lessons have been learned, and we must really hold on to this in order to build a very strong education system.
Okay, so you see, you brought up an important point, lessons learned, and we have been exploring that right across UCF, Jamaica, England. And I want to say to you that it's a very thoughtful movement that you have created. What lessons have we learned? And which brings me to the point now, another question, because you went so in depth into that one. And this is my final one. From the lessons learned, where do you see education in another 10 years or so?
In another 10 years, I see a lot of people having access to education because government institutions collaborated with private organizations in order to make digital tools, technology accessible to the disadvantaged. Without COVID, I'm sure government institutions will not think of that. So because of COVID now, a lot of most of these disadvantaged learners now have access to these digital tools, and I know that it will get better. It will get better in 10 years. In 10 years' time.
Yes, thanks so much. I had a friend who's now gone on, and he said it gets better all the time. So I'm using that code to say to you at this point, we can see a brighter future. Dr. Doherty, I want to say thanks for revealing, informative, and critical interview. You've touched on some very dominant points. The key takeaway is that we can be resilient. Regardless of the crisis that we are in, we can come out being a better educational institution or a better teacher, regardless. You touched on the issue of partnership. And I think as we spoke over the period of time, we've spoken over the period of time, I realized that there can be some connections. And I want to explore that further because I think it's important. After all, remember, I do have some connections there now, right?
Nigeria.
So what I'm saying is it's revealing, it's powerful. It tells me that you are very conscious in the field. Your articles that you've written, your 6 books, tells me a lot that you have committed time and your life to serve. You're passionate. And I want to say thanks again for sharing. And I look forward to greater conversations with you. At this stage, I want to say thanks again. I look forward to our continued conversations as we move forward in making our countries and the place that we live a better place as it relates to access, inclusion, and quality in teaching and learning, whether it be face-to-face or online. Thanks for sharing.